Good. So we are live. So welcome for those who are joining us. Also for those who are watching on the replay. So I'm Colin Parsons. Obviously, you know that because you've clicked through on my post. Today we're joined by Marina. Marina, I've never actually said your surname, and I don't want to butcher it. So uh,
I would love for you
it's-
to try. Please do so.
here we go. Right. Okay. So Karen Ausker.
It's perfect. It's great.
Really? Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
one
That
of the
just
best versions I've ever heard, so it's perfectly fine.
okay.
Even in my own language, it's on the tougher side. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Good, fantastic. So, Marina, rather than me present you and get things wrong or not accurate, I'd rather you present yourself. Just who you are, what you do, maybe some interesting facts about yourself, background to sort of set some context.
Yeah, of course. So, hi everyone. If you have not met or seen me before, my name is Marina, and generally I am a coach. So, I specialize in career coaching, leadership coaching, and I think my overall sort of interest is in talent profiling. So sometimes I call myself a profiler, and it sounds really nice and interesting. But all I'm trying to put into this word is that I'm very curious about people. I'm very interested in psychology. I'm very interested in human behavior and our decisions and choices. And probably most of all, in how do we live a happy, fulfilled, and meaningful life. So everything that I do is just trying to figure out for myself and to help my clients and other people that I get in contact with into how just live a meaningful life, be happy about it, and how to help others as well. So that's in a nutshell what I do.
Perfect. So I think maybe for full disclosure, maybe people will get it as we talk, but we work together. You actually coach me. So we've known each other, I don't know how long, maybe 2 years. And you've
Yeah,
really,
yeah.
yeah. And yeah, you came into my life when it was really, I felt a bit unclear about what I was going to do as a career. Still trying to work it all out. But you've really helped me understand myself, understand a lot of concepts that I knew already, but maybe only at the surface level. And you helped me sort of dig into those concepts, but more about myself and who I was. And I mean, we'll come on to talk about it in a minute, but the talent profiling that you've done on me really changed a lot for me. So I've been on I guess a self-discovery journey for a long time. I went to therapy about 10 years ago. Um, and I'm very keen to put that out there because I think there's this misconception that therapy is that, you're going crazy and you can't handle the world, etc. But I actually want to debunk that myth. I think when I went to therapy, it was just because I was struggling. A lot had changed in my life, and I needed some perspective. I think there was a lot of things that I hadn't dealt with in a long time, and I saw patterns repeating, and I thought the things outside of me were the problem, and it allowed me to look inwards and understand myself. So, and that has led me to on this journey of self-awareness um, and just bringing it back to you. You're very interested in people, and so am I, because I think oftentimes when you understand more about yourself, you can see it in others, and you can not help others, but you can sort of navigate things a lot easier. So yeah, it was always great to work with you, and you've always given me amazing insights on many things. But the talent piece has been something very consistent in the last, I don't know, 6 9 months. I can't remember when we did it, but yeah, I was very grateful that we actually did that exercise and what I've learned from it.
Yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. And to be very honest, the interest in myself started quite early in my life because I always try to understand who am I. And already growing as a teenager, I could see some differences in how I saw the world. And I was way more interested in the question why. Why do things work a certain way? Why do people make these choices? Why do they say things that they don't believe in or they don't want to say, but they have to? So I was always quite interested growing up. And I think it led me to also discover and research a lot about human beings in general. So throughout my 20s, I think I consistently tried to find the answers. And I looked in science, I looked in social sciences, in different areas. I looked at religion, I looked at sociology, I looked at history, and I tried to understand what makes people so unique yet so connected on some deeper level, right? So this kind of like dynamics between we are all so different, but yet at the same time there's something so similar between all of us, and you can almost categorize us, right, to put us in some sort of categories. But I could never pin it down because every single either profiling or system or analysis I took was so analytical and it was so numerical and computational that I was thinking like, yeah, to some extent this describes me, but it's like an astrology chart sometimes that you read on a newspaper on Sunday. It's like, yeah, it could be partially me, but it's not really so precisely me that I would really derive any value from that, right? So I kept on looking, and I was having a job that was interesting for me. I had a career in sales, at least I started. And then somewhere at my late 20s, I met a person who suggested me to go to a coach. And I've never considered coaching before in my life either. And I said, well, that would be really interesting. So it was a personal recommendation. And I went to her, and over 2 hours, she completely blew my mind. She saw me like very deeply. She could understand me very deeply. And she gave me some very important answers that I had at that point. And one of the questions was, can I actually help other people to figure out who they are and what they want to do in life? And she said, yeah, you would make an amazing coach yourself. And I could not believe that because I never studied psychology formally. I studied always business or marketing, right? So I didn't have like a formal background in psychology. And she said, yeah, you would be great at this intuitively. Was wow. That sounded like a huge compliment. And I started researching even more. And at some point, I found the system that completely blew my mind. And that is the system of human potential that I use right now for my coaching clients. And was the first sort of like paid full scale coaching profiling that I received myself. So I only started coaching people after I went through the program myself. And when I heard the description of me so 100% accurate, even in small nuances that always troubled me, like, how can I be like this, but also be like that? How can I think like this, but also think like that? There was like so many polarities in me that really were not ever understood or explained to me before, and this system just really outlined, yeah, that's because like this and that's how it works. And it was so logical. That's what I loved, because some of the descriptions that we use, they are very qualitative. They describe you as a person, as a psychological profile, but they never really give you any data to support that. They are never really that much logical. So the system that I used later on, it was both. It gave me like so much confidence in what I heard, like it was correct. And they were really able to answer all my questions. So I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds really amazing. I would love to give it to other people. And I started just giving out this service pro bono to everyone, just trying to spread the good word, help other people. I started with people who I knew, and they were all like, wow, that's amazing. You should start doing more of that. And slowly, within several years, it grew into really an interest in coaching. And then I started getting more certifications. I started studying like coaching more as like a holistic practice, not only based on profiling, but profiling is always at my core. So right now, I think I can't help myself, but I kind of analyze every person I get in contact with, because I'm also keeping myself sharp. Like I hear something, people say something, I'm like, they probably are this profile or that profile. And it's helping a lot, because what is the build up of the other person. You know instantly how to communicate with them. What are they looking for? What makes them feel connected to you? What makes them understand what you're trying to say? Because um, people need different things in the communication in order to feel understood, and also in order to understand themselves. So I think as a base for our conversation today that touches also business, I think this part of communication, correct communication, is very, very important. So I'm sure that we will come back to this a little bit later today in this conversation. But
Yeah.
that's a short intro.
No, that's it's amazing. It's like you said so much that resonates with me. So I've done the DISC assessment, the 16 personalities. I want to say Briggs Myers. I don't remember
Mhm.
all the. And I've done these probably in work context, or it's something that work suggested that we did. And the same as you, it just it almost felt quite limiting. Like, like the disc profile, it's four profiles, and it was just like, okay, well, I sit in that, and it's quite vague, and I felt quite empty after all of that because I think as people we're very complex, and there's a lot of things that go on, and it really gave me no answers, and it kind of put me in that category, and it just yeah, as I say, I felt quite limited, and it was a good introduction to start the curiosity and sort of understand. Oh, okay, this. But the big difference between what you do is huge, and again, we'll touch on it in a second. But I briefly want to go into the world of talent because talent and profiling, all of this circles around that subject. So I think if we switch it over to the business world, so I've worked for corporations, large ones, small ones, and in between. And one of the things that we talk about is talent. Now, I think what how I felt, and it might be some legacy feeling that I have, but they had the talent acquisition teams and talent recognition, and it seems very elitist in my mind. It basically says, "Are the people that are due for promotion, or the people that are due to succeed?" Well, and they kind of fast track these people or try and attract these people from outside the corporation to work for them. Now, that's okay. I understand that from a business perspective, but the reality is that's not really understanding the person themselves. They go, oh, okay, is this person going to be our next CEO? And they're going to go onto this track and they'll travel around and communicate and present or whatever. Obviously, there's many different types of talent, but that's just an easy example to understand. But I what I dislike about that whole part is that they're not thinking about people, and the everyone has talent. And when you think about it from a business perspective, you almost disregard sort of 95% of the people working as in they don't have talent. They go, oh, they're just a worker. But the reality is everyone has talent. They have talents. So, and we'll dig into your method and we can maybe give some highlights around it. But I think understanding yourself is amazing. I think that frees up so much, probably inner conflict sometimes when you understand, okay, why do I feel resistance, why do I feel this, you can, when you understand it or you see it, you go, oh, okay, this is this part playing, this is this part playing, and then you go, oh, okay, that's why the conflict. But when you look at it from a business perspective, they think about people, okay, are they going to be a good fit for the company, can they produce results? But I want to flip that. I think that actually we should look at all people in companies because ultimately I dislike the way that companies have been working. Well, I know it served its purpose for many, many years, but now the way that we work, the way that we're connected, technology, the things that we're actually having to do for our jobs is so different, yet we're still trying to squeeze that all through the same sausage machine that was effective 50 years ago. And I want to really, as part of these lives, question a lot of those assumptions. Now, I'm seeing some great companies coming with new ideas, different ways of working, people be it feeling empowered, remote working, whole host of things. And again, it's not a one size fits all. But I think when you actually understand your people and understand their talent, I think that's such a powerful thing. And just to touch on a point that you mentioned earlier, so it's not a leadership conversation, but ultimately, I've always said that there's a disconnect between leadership and people, and oftentimes leaders have been put in that position for a specific reason. They were promoted through, or they have some sort of insight, but they are rarely able to adjust their thinking and adjust their approach based on who they're talking to in the team. They tend to go, I'm going to do it this way, and you're all going to follow me. But what I've seen and what I've experienced, the best leaders are the ones that can adopt a change in their mindset and see the people in front of them and say, okay, this person needs more attention, this person needs more autonomy, whatever it is, but they adjust. And And you can see the results because everyone feels seen and heard as a person. They work well with that person. So the understanding a person's talent and being able to adjust yourself to communicate, I think, is absolutely priceless in that type of role.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the question that you're asking is first of all very serious, but it's also a very, very deep question. It might sound quite like it might sound like it's just like a logical experiment, right? You can quantify something, you can describe it, and then you can apply your knowledge to get certain result. But what the current situation exposes in the world is that the people have no idea how human works, how human performs. And that's why so many companies are freaking out because they are unable to tap into the talent or to tap into the potential. They talk about productivity, they talk about KPIs, they talk about talented people performing and delivering, right? So all of these are numerical things, things that we want to quantify. And I understand that a company has these certain KPIs that it has to quantify because a company is an enterprise. Enterprise is designed to perform and produce a certain result. And this result in a capitalistic world has a number. So everything that we do within the company setting has a final number that we want to reach. That's all that it comes to. So we are trying to squeeze qualitative data into the quantitative machine so that it gives in the end a number. And I do not think that it is possible because a human cannot be quantified. Human can be studied, but not all the studies can be done in a numerical way. There are qualitative studies as well, right? Even when we look at the scientific design, there are studies that you do when you compute the final result, you measure and compute, and there are studies where you just describe things because you cannot put a number in it. It's qualitative. And then on top of that, what we add, the complexity of it, is that humans change. Humans change not only from year to year, from generation to generation, they change from one day to the other. Women go through cycles throughout the month. They also change, their performance changes, their priorities change. And because companies cannot pinpoint all of these things, they try to quantify everything and they try to sell a magic formula that will give us all the answers. So they basically say that if you increase their salary by X amount percent, or you give them this kind of carrot and dangle it in front of them, by the end of the financial year, they will produce you X output and you will be able to increase this much before you next invest around or something like this. We are trying to quantify things that have too much qualitative data in it and we cannot control that data. So when we talk about talent, the first thing that I wanted to communicate today is that people are always get overlooked because we are looking for wrong things. We're looking for numbers. We're looking for numbers to quantify them. Whereas a human is much more complex than that. And the human performance, even at work, such like a reduced and almost like a controlled environment, a business, the organization, the office, it seems to be a controlled environment. But there's so much that is happening there, right? You take one person away from the team, you put someone else, the team dynamic is completely disrupted. Why? Even though according to your numerical number that must have been a better, a more talented person or something like this, right? A mystery. Why does it work like this? They say, they just don't go together. There's something different about that person dynamic. What is it? How can we understand that? And I think the real core problem is in the mere fact that we're trying to control. We're trying to control the environment and we try to predict with the number. So we try to control a system that needs a room and air to produce the best result. A human is an ecosystem. Well, actually, both metaphorically and technically, a human is an ecosystem. And when you have several humans together, that's an even more complex ecosystem. And when you put many people together in an organization and take a corporation, 10,000 plus ecosystems within one mega system. You try to control that and quantify it and predict the result. It can be accurate all the time. And I think the first sort of conclusion from that message is that there has to be room and air for an individual. And of course, the next question will be how do we provide for that? So If we cannot quantify the talent, then how else could we look at it? How else could we allow it to flourish? How can we allow it to come through, right? So that's first
Yeah.
question. And then the second one that I want to highlight, because I totally agree with you, is the talent is a highly misrepresented word, because people think that talent equals genius. There is one genius per large amount of people, but everyone is talented. We just have to use the correct definition of what talent is. And then we have to understand that there is no strengths and weaknesses either. There is just a spectrum of you having a very, very good ability to use certain skill, and we can call that quote unquote talent, and a little bit lower ability to harness the power of that skill. But it does not make your weakness. It just means that other qualities that you have, you possess them to a greater degree. So it's not really strengths versus weaknesses. It's more like, what do I operate stronger in myself? What is my kind of like more executed ability that I executed many, many times? So now I have a grasp of it. For example, if you drive a car and I drive a bicycle, and I drive a bicycle every single day to work and you drive a car every single day, can you say that driving the car is my weakness? Well, I'm not really weak at that because I have probably never tried, or I don't do that every single day, but it doesn't make me weak at that. And the same way, is driving a bicycle is your weakness? No, you just don't do that every single day. So maybe I'm better and faster at biking, and you are better and faster at driving a car, but it does not make the opposite a weakness, right? So
Yeah.
I think we have to shift the whole perspective on how do we look at people. We should not look at them as a person that has certain weakness or communication is their weakness. It's just something that they have not practiced too much compared to someone else. That's it. But in equal conditions, equal amount of time, would both of them operate it equally well? Who knows? Maybe if the second person had more chance to train their communication skill, maybe they would have been much better than the first person. But we already mislabel them as bad in communication. So we already kind of like cross it off their mind that they can and should even try to develop that if they wanted to, right? So here are a couple of thoughts to put into the pot.
Yeah.
First of all,
So there's many many things going through my mind as you're speaking. So one of the things really is that you know, you were sort of saying about trying to put people into the boxes and, you know, get a KPI out of it. That's done for robots. That's, you know, robots don't, you know, they are thinking for themselves apparently. So, um, but that's, you know, there's no human element to that, and that's never gonna work in terms of, you know, trying to put people into boxes as humans. You know, there's so much, like you say, the ecosystem and so much going on. Something else that jumped out at me is that I think in the world of work, that I've come across a few people, a few examples. They were specifically ladies, and I don't know if that is anything to do with it, but just those two just popped out into my mind. That I worked with them in different areas. One was on a course that I was working on, and one I worked with directly. And they both started to show up, and in their world, they became quite creative, and they were showing this signs of creativity. One was doing these videos and sort of storytelling, and as part of the course, and I was like, wow, I was mesmerized by her. She just had she had a great way of reading, telling a story. It was really, really creative. And then the other one was I was working with. I created a newsletter, and it was nothing like I'd seen before. Normally, a newsletter is just sort of text and nothing, but she really brought out the visual element and really gave a lot of thought and design to things. And I had separate conversations. These were um, actually years apart. But when I see something in someone, I'm like, I have to call it out straight away. It's something in me that just bursts open. I go, ah. And I said to them individually, "You are really creative." And when I told them that, they both went, "No, I'm not." And so I explored a bit further with each of them. And basically, in their childhood, they were told they weren't creative. So they've tried to switch that part off in their brain. And but when I was having that conversation with them, you could see like this the light coming through, and they're like, "Oh yeah." And I think at some point they felt a little bit ashamed that actually it was coming out. But I I think we all have these things, but we go into a world, being parented in school and definitely in work, that we're told to sort of suppress these things that we are naturally, I think, either talented at doing or just want to explore further. And I find that so sad because we kind of just narrow ourselves really down for the purposes of work or to fit in. And I've had this idea for a long time that because I want to change the way that we work, that putting people just in specific boxes won't work. And I think we're much more than that. And we'll dig into your profile in a second, your profiling in a second. But I think once you understand, okay, I'm going to give an example of, people say, oh, I'm introverted, and they give themselves a label, but they can be also extroverted based on the environment, the people around them, how they're feeling, their energy levels. I've seen that in myself. Sometimes I can stand on stage and I can talk. Um, it's the same as this video. I like talking. I like engaging. I'm more, I'm better in a one-to-one situation, but I can do it and I do it well. And that's something I can do for short periods of time. And after that, I kind of need to go back in my shell and just, regain some energy. But I can really, if you caught me in that small moment, you would say potentially that I was an extrovert. So we kind of put these labels on ourselves, and we say, "Oh, I'm introverted," and that's the message that we're telling ourselves. But we can be both, depending on situations, the whole things like that. So I've also felt that this could break into companies. I think so. I give this example a few times, but I've often said, oh, someone's quite extroverted, maybe put them on the sales team or client relationship. Someone who likes to engage with clients, understand, very good communication skills verbally, loves engaging, understanding. Do that for 3 days a week, and then go and work in the development area, in the back office, where you just stick your headphones on, code away, don't interact. And that's not, that's very stereotypical way of thinking about a developer. So for all the developers out there,
Still,
I
it's an
apologize.
example.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's the thing. And why not? Because I think where I believe that so many people want to bring more themselves to work, and they want to give more, but again, they're limited in these boxes or part of it. And it comes back to this talent, understanding yourself, because again, in my own example, sometimes there's this conflict of, oh, okay, I'm doing this, but we seem to have to sign up for, okay, I'm going to work in sales, I've got to, that's 100% of my job, that's what I've got to do. So there might be people that are really interested in doing sales but not full time. But in companies, we can't seem to divide that, because everything has to have a hierarchy and a structure for
Mm.
to earn money, etc. So yeah, it's really something that I see. It's almost bubbling under the surface, and I think I see a lot of people quitting their job, starting something themselves, myself included. And I think this is because they get frustrated at work a lot of time. I think they can't fully be who they want to be. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that starting your own business is the thing that you should do, because it comes with a lot of complexities, and you have to do things that you might not enjoy doing. So, it's not all roses. Okay, I'm going to quit my job and, I'm going to earn a load of money. There's,
We wish.
yeah, exactly. So, um, but I think, there's the lower barriers to entry for starting your own company and being able to do things on your terms. But I think if companies actually adjusted how they were thinking about people, they would retain, let's say, talent or people, just because they're more open to allow those people to bring more of themselves. So that's something. Unless someone's going to change my mind, that's one of the things that I'm kind of stuck on for now. So it's a bit of a side issue. So let's just jump back, unless you have any disagreement, you want to change my
No, actually, I'm very much in agreement with you, and I would even further that, and I would back that up again with the research. So I always say that the truth is relative, and I know so many people get triggered by that, but I will explain why I say that. The truth that is relevant for you, let's call it this way, not the absolute truth, because that's probably domain of physics and a bit more hard sciences, but the truth that is relevant for you um, comes from your own mind, comes from your head, and more specifically, coming from your beliefs. If you believe it, this is true for you. If you believe you can do something, it's true. At the same time, if you believe that you can do it, it's also true. It just might take different amount of time that you expect. So be very careful what you repeat yourself every single day about yourself, about other people, about the world, about everything around you. Be very careful with that, because everything that you say becomes true for you. If you say you cannot do something, you will not be able to do that with time. And the more times you repeat that, the more you will believe that. That's just science. That's just how psychology works. That's how the mind works. And the explanation behind that is how our neurons are forming connections between each other. And the neurons that fire together wire together, as they say in neuroscience. If you repeat certain things over and over and over and over again, it becomes your truth. And if you don't believe that, just make a very, very weird sort of like experiment with yourself. But you have to stick to it, because it takes very different amount of times for different thoughts for different people. So it's not like you repeat yourself for 30 days, I'm rich, and then on the day 31, you wake up a millionaire. It's not going to work like that. But
I've tried
the
it.
most, oh, so many of us tried it, right? I mean, affirmations do work, but you have to know how to use them. There are specific things that are very important, but the underlying mechanism is that the neurons in your brain have to form a connection. This connection has to be strengthened, and it can only be strengthened with time and effort. That's the rule. So that is to reinforce what you said in the beginning. If you were told in your childhood you can't do something, especially if you were told by an authoritative figure, for example, your parent, your sibling that you deemed an important person, like their opinion was valuable to you, a friend. It could have been even a teacher, a guardian, someone that really held weight in your eyes. They said something about you. The chances were you really believe that. If your parents repeated to you, you're such a beautiful girl, you're such a beautiful girl, you're such a beautiful girl, the chances that you grew up believing that you are beautiful are very high. At the same time, if someone told you, you are a loser, you are weak, you are not talented, you can't do something, you're incapable, a lot of people got traumatized by that without even understanding it. So, this is an important message for parents. Please tell your children every single day that you love them, that you believe in them. It's very, very important, because that wires their brain for life, because you as a parent are the most important person in their life for the first 10 to 15 years. Probably after 15 they think you are the least important person and the least smart.
Mm.
That's probably what they will believe when they're a teenager, but that's a different story. So the first thing that I wanted to highlight from what you said is that yes, what we tell ourselves about ourselves and the world is very important, especially from young age. Now, said that, is it then, does it then mean, is it possible that something that you believed in your early part of life is going to stay with you forever? Not necessarily. Because just as much as neurons form connections in our brain, they also release their connections. So the neurons that are not fired together, the thoughts that you don't think anymore, slowly with time, gradually will leave you. It's like a muscle. If you train it all the time, it will be strong. But the moment you stop training it, it will get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker until the moment it just breaks down to like a very small rudimental state, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to kind of transition into, as you said, go back to the office, go back to the business area, is that indeed the huge companies, the corporations, they try to be very dichotomic, meaning that they use one or the other. They use opposite. It's either yes or no. It's either full or it's empty. It's completed or it's incomplete. It's a success or it's a fail. Because again, huge organizations, corporations, they need economies of scale. They need a scale in general. And in order to scale something, it has to be rudimental. It has to be as standardized as possible. So people are turned into human resources. And in order to manage your resources, you have to standardize them. That's the only way to scale something, because otherwise, you cannot scale complexity with control. The only way something on our planet is scaled without control is nature. But we do not have that power as humans. We are very limited in our power. So we cannot mimic the structure and the power of the nature, right? So we follow some sort of logical approaches to that. And what we do is we categorize people. And even on the HR profiles, sometimes I know that there are certain profiles of employees that are stated good at this and this, bad at this and this, promote for this and this reason, demote for those and those reason. People are labeled quite a lot. They're put
Mm.
into boxes, they are labeled because that's just the only way how a corporation can manage the human resources. Is it an effective way? You just said it yourself. People quit the jobs, especially people quit huge corporations because they understand that the job that they have in a big company, it's a box, it's a cubicle, both metaphorically and actually. You're working in a cubicle. Your job description is like this. You only do this part of work, and all the rest of your personality is at best neglected, and at worst, it's being frowned upon or punished. For example, I have met the examples of certain companies that prohibited their employees to do anything else on the side apart from their job. The, the rationale was I pay you full time and I do not want you to have your brain occupied with anything else. To which my
Wow.
response would be, you're not paying for my 24/7, you are paying for my 40 hours a week. So for the rest of the hours of the week, I should be free to do whatever I want, right? Pending that I have the capacity and, all of that. So when I heard that rationale is that I don't think that person, it was a person in a leadership position, they gave an interview online. I think I watched it on YouTube. I don't think that leader would have a lot of like retention of people in their company because everyone who's put in the box sooner or later gets stifled. Like their potential is not going anywhere. People feel bored, depressed. What is a depression? Depression is the lack of happiness, lack of fulfillment, right? Lack of emotions. And when people are constricted so much, sooner or later they feel like there's no room to breathe anymore. They want to go somewhere else. And very unfortunately, people see the only alternative to having a job is to have their own business. They don't understand how they can still have a job and be fully fulfilled in that job. And that's what I actually wanted to talk about quite a lot today is how can you still maintain employment if that's what you call, because a lot of people, they are not built for having businesses. You have to have certain skills and abilities in your profile to be good at having solopreneurship, for example, or to be an entrepreneur. It's a skill set and it's also a mentality, it's a mindset. How can you do that? And not everyone is wired for that. Me, for example, I do have my own coaching business, but I came to conclusion after several years I'm not good as a solopreneur. I am lonely being a solopreneur. Like the only human contact I have is with my clients. And I cannot have 8 hours of sessions per day. I will just burn out. It's just impossible for me. When I have a human contact with my client, it takes a lot of resource. And then for the rest of my day, I do the admin. And it's just not for me because I want to have more human contact, for example. So I realized that for me, the coaching business in the classical, like solopreneur perspective is not something that I would thrive in forever. I need more human contact and I need to find a way to have more human contact, right? So that was a conclusion that I got from my deeper profiling as well. And then how do other people solve the same problem? Like if you are in a job, you work at a company, for example, you're an accountant or you're a salesperson, you work in marketing or in HR, and you realize, okay, my current job is not enough for me, or I don't feel like I'm fully fulfilled. I have creativity, as you had in your example, for example. How can those ladies from your example put in creativity that they do on the side through videos or newsletter creation? How can they bring it back to their jobs? And I would suggest my idea, and I would love to hear your opinion as well, Colin. So my idea is, and I've seen it in a beautiful example, at least one example I've seen myself, when a leader of the company says, I will give you flexibility to choose your own tasks from this pool. Of course, the company is of a smaller size. I don't think it can be implemented easily on a big scale. So, sorry, guys, from the corporate, I don't think it's really possible, very easy, but on a smaller scale, like a scale up size, there is a lot of work to do, and you're free to choose what you want to do from this scope and also give you responsibility for that. So there is both the freedom to choose and the responsibility. I think these two components together provide for the person constantly being stimulated, excited, encouraged, but also accountable. Because if we just give people a lot of freedom, what we have is kids at the playground. They play, but there's no incentive to really deliver on anything. They just come and go, they hang out, they spend good time, they do something, but that something might not even be aligned with the company goals, right? So people are just like growing into something by themselves if there's no responsibility. On the opposite side of the scale, if there's only responsibility and people are constantly told what to do and they have no choice, they are not encouraged to think for themselves. They're here just to execute. You create robots. And what the robots do time after time, they break.
Yeah.
And that's why we have so many burnout people that are not interested to stay in their jobs anymore. They want to quit. So I believe that the combination of both certain amount of freedom and the corresponding responsibility will provide for an absolute miraculous experience to emerge. And I call that experience curiosity. We talk about it a lot. I think I mention it like almost every single day in so many contexts. Curiosity. I believe that curiosity is the key to fulfillment, to happiness, to growth. And companies, startups are initially led by curiosity. Someone has curiosity to solve a problem. So why somewhere along the way we lose it? And when do we lose it? What happens? So we lose curiosity. That's a
Yeah.
big question, I think.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, like you say, a very big question because I, I'm not quite sure because, like you say, I think people like the idea of startups because they get involved and everything's like, oh, okay, quite exciting and you can get involved and, you know, but the larger you get, it's almost more standardized everything becomes. But I think the reality is, yeah, I'm I'm a big believer in autonomy. That works for me. I know it doesn't work necessarily for everyone, but I think there's too much control in companies. So your example of yeah, taking some ownership of something and within a field. So in the world that we are in at the moment, options are so almost unlimited of what you can and can't do. You can just pretty much do anything. And I think that causes the
On the path of self-discovery, I could not understand myself. How can I be at the same time very extroverted person, but also very introverted person on other days? Like sometimes I really cannot see anyone at all for the whole day. I just want to be alone. I want to hear no one. I want to talk to no one. But then at the same time, I miss people heavily if I don't do that for more than like 2 days. And I need to talk to everyone. I love being in the middle of the office, right? But there is still this never ending debate. What's better, work from the office or work from home? Give people freedom if you have the ability. Allow them to come to the office, designate certain days when it's like the whole company gathering day when everyone can meet each other and hang out and get experience and just socialize, and that allow people to stay at home when they have to, because some people really can focus only when they're isolated from distractions. And now there are people that say that, yeah, like if you have ADHD, you also have to manage yourself in a different way than the person who identifies as a non-ADHD person, right? So there are different needs at different times, and by giving people flexibility to choose for themselves and holding them accountable for the final result, this is the best mixture of them all. You can say, okay, you're working in sales, so you seem to be very extroverted, but would you like to take 1 day, 2 days, maybe a week out of a month in a different department where you help organizing our stock shelf, or you would like to try out some accounting and you want to help with just writing contracts. There could be so many ways to start of blending a little bit different teams and to create almost like cohesion between different members of the team, so people start taking more responsibilities outside of their primary role that would complement their creative potential, their creative style. And who knows, maybe that person discovers that, oh, they've been an accountant all their life, but all they actually wanted to do, they wanted to do marketing. They just never were given an opportunity. And
Yeah.
now that they are in charge of the company's newsletter or LinkedIn page or something, they love writing posts. And maybe one day they want to start creating webinars for the company, and they want to go to the fairs and shows. And one day they will be on stage in front of a huge crowd presenting your company and getting a lot of leads. There's so many opportunities and possibilities. So I think my biggest advice for the corporate leaders, for the HR managers, for the talent managers, stop assuming that you can quantify a person. You can't. Don't assume that. Let the person guide you into how they should grow. Like, what do they need? Ask them and give them the flexibility to a certain extent, and you will see that the people actually, they do want to contribute. That's all what we want to do. We want to be recognized, we want to be fulfilled, we want to feel that we are doing something meaningful, all of us. Maslow's hierarchy pyramid is probably one of the easiest model we can mention here. Once our basics are covered on the bottom, we're fed, we are warm, we have some friends, we have some social connections, all we crave at the top is fulfillment, is self-actualization. We want ourselves to be experienced and explored to the maximum. So I believe that companies can create opportunities for people to explore that extra potential that they have in them. And that is the way, to me, to see every person as talented, every person having a great talent. It's just the talents that we have are different, and we have different mixture of them in us. But we all have so much more to offer, even within the same organization that we work with. We don't necessarily have to have many different gigs on the side. Some people prefer that, but not everyone wants and even needs that. Even within the same company, you can explore so much. You can create, you can play, and most importantly, you can contribute really meaningfully to the company's goals as well. And I believe that's the approach that should be explored in the future, is more like ecosystem approach,
Yeah.
where you do not control the conditions, you create certain conditions, and then you improve them based on the response from what's happening within ecosystem, just like the nature does, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's strange when you're talking. What my mind says is that companies have too much of a grip on everything. It's this
Mm,
control. Just allow that to open up. And again, people think that everything happens overnight. Okay, we're going to lose everything, or no, no. Just experiment. Try this with certain people, and what I've actually found, even with myself, most people tell you what they want. It might be a quiet whisper, or they'll kind of, in this example of this lady that was doing the newsletter, she told you like what she was doing, what she wanted. It was there, and you just had to pay attention. But I think one last thing, just I know, I'm conscious that we don't want to run too far over the hour, but um, I think this, in terms of recruitment, I think just to tie that back, because when we think about recruiting and hiring and job descriptions, etc., we still go back to that box. We think about hard skills, and I think as you were talking, this I believe in myself that I've become much more aware of who I am and how I work and things. I'm still evolving. I think there's a lot of people not quite into that and don't really either want to do it, or they're so busy in a certain way that they don't have that they might not want to explore. Sometimes that's a scary world to sort of be self-aware. Maybe you've made some decisions that aren't quite right. I get that, or not right, but not aligned with what you actually want. But I think bringing that awareness into companies, into the recruitment process, into actually like the leadership positions of understanding talent in that different way, and then allowing people within your teams to understand, have the freedom to kind of explore that a little bit more, because we don't always have the opportunity to do it outside. But I think bringing that lightness and that ability um, to understand ourselves, understand what our profiles are a bit more, without, oftentimes companies use it as a, like you say, like, you should be promoted, you not, etc. But think of it differently, like you've just explained, and allow all of that to come in. So one thing that we talked about ages ago in one of our sessions is that I don't understand why we spend all this money and time and energy on recruitment as a job description. We go, right, that's everything that we want. Yep, 12 boxes, all tick those. But we don't look at people's talent and profiling in, we might try the disc approach, but when I saw yours, I was like, why aren't companies doing that? Because you said it earlier, just you have this mix of all different people, personalities and ecosystems, and you if you understand actually not what's missing, as in, okay, there's one person that can do a certain system. Sometimes it's not a hard skill, necessarily a soft skill. It's something more about their talent. They are a connector or a communicator, and again, not in the way that you would put on your CV on LinkedIn, oh, I can communicate. Someone that sees people or connects people or supports people or can lead people, but without the title. And if you understand that dynamic in the recruitment process, in the teams, and you can really look, rather than just taking one person out, like you said, and putting someone back in, actually understand what it is within that team that you need. What is it? And it's often not something that was going to show up on a CV. You know, yes, you may be an amazing person on this system, but actually, if you can't interact with everyone else, you're not part of a team. And okay, that might serve, but you also need that other side. And if you understand, and again, just back to many of the points that you said, just if you understand and if you have someone that can see that and can be the bridge between two or three different people in the team, the benefits start to sort of really sort of ripple out. And then you can, on top of that, with all of what you're saying, just allow this people to bring more of themselves and understand that. So for me, understanding like your profile and your talent and all of that aspect has so much value, but we just don't do it. It's not, if I don't know if people are not aware of it, they just ignore it. They think it's a cost that's not worth it. But I've seen some of the commissions that are paid for hiring people. They're huge. Spend a little bit more and make sure it's the right fit. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I would say is my sort of closing thought on the whole thing. What
Hmm.
about yourself?
Yeah. I was also thinking, what would be my one advice that I would love to share with recruiters and with the leaders who are looking for people? And at the same time, that advice would actually feel into people who are looking for a job. Like, how can I advise to make this best match? And I was thinking about it quite a lot. And I think the one final advice I would share, if you're looking for people, you're looking for talent, and you want to create this ecosystem where people are taking on responsibility, they're willing to contribute, they're willing to do something. Like, how can you recognize that during the interview, for example? What you should be looking for is the person who is first self aware of themselves, they understand themselves very well, and not in the sense that they can list you their, again, strengths and weaknesses. That is not understanding yourself. The person has to answer your questions in a way that suggests and indicates that they are aware of how they interact with the environment, what are implications of their actions on the environment. They're considerate of the environment. So they are able to see themselves and others from the person perspective, meaning that their ego is a little bit lower, their needs for recognition and their needs to fit in are also more flexible. So this is the person who I call informally a chill person. Like, they are just chill. They understand who they are, they understand who others are, and they accept it the way it is. So that's the first thing. The person is self aware in general. And then the second part is that a person is willing to explore, experiment, to grow, and they are willing to sort of understand the change, implement the change, and to drive the change as well. So they say, I'm willing to try that and that in the future, but based on the outcome of my experiments, I'm able to pivot or change, or I'm flexible and I'm adaptive. So you are looking for someone who is interested to join your company, not because they are a calculator or a robot that fits perfectly in all the 12 boxes, not because they want this job, not because they want something like very, like tangible and very superficial, but because they're interested to contribute, and they're interested to research for themselves what they are capable of. And last part is they're willing to, if not support, but at least to wish and allow that for other people. They are willing
Yeah.
to grow themselves, and they're willing to witness others to do the same. So they're willing to be supportive of everyone else's growth, which means that they're open, they are friendly, they are approachable, and they are accepting of others. Which means that in the collaboration in a team, they will be flexible, they will be supportive, they will be engaged and involved, right? So
Yeah.
you're looking for this a little bit more interpersonal skills rather than only hard skills, because I think we have already verified that hiring people based only on hard skills will backfire, because they will learn to tell you all the right things during the interview. They will learn that. It's very easy. Now with the chat GPT, it's very easy to prepare for the interview based on the job description. They just tells you what are the right words, what are the right sentences, that you can just memorize all of that. But they will never be able to communicate something that they are not. They will only communicate to you something that they are. And from that, you can understand if they're willing to really grow together and support others. And I think if you approach your recruitment this way, you will get the best positive results where people are in it together. And at the same time, if you are a person who is looking for a job, also try to understand how would you like to contribute? What makes you shine? What makes you spark? What makes you interested and curious? What would you like to try? What would you like to give to the world? What should be your contribution to our society? What topics interest you? What topics make you feel engaged and motivated and like, yeah, I really want that to happen. I want more of that. I want to support this cause. And this should be the direction for you to look for a job. And trust me, your hard skills will only support this general approach, and will help you to be very successful in that job as early as it's possible for you. And yeah, a final word is always stay happy, stay enthusiastic, help others, accept others, love others, and they will love you back. And I think this way we will be not only resilient organizations, but actually resilient communities and society in general, I believe.
Love it. Love it. So we didn't actually get to talk about your talent profiling in itself. I will speak to it just very briefly, and I guess people can reach out to you directly. I'll share this again on LinkedIn. It's going out on YouTube, etc. The best place to find you is where, on your website or in LinkedIn? Where?
Yeah, it's both. On the website, you can read a little bit more about me and what I do, my services. But if you want to chat, go straight on LinkedIn, pop me a DM. I will be happy to reply, schedule a call. If you're happening to be in the Netherlands, especially in The Hague, where I live, you're very welcome to meet with me for a coffee or tea and a chat. And I am very much looking forward to connect with everyone who is interested in the topic of the talent, not only for themselves, but also for their companies. Because I believe that we are in this together. And if I can help you to give some ideas or just, some support that, hey, everything's going to be fine, we're going to pull through, we'll
Yeah.
be happy to do that.
Yeah, I think, just you've given me that as well. Sometimes when you're going through moments, in a transitional period, you can you can not feel your most confident, and you've always allowed me to zoom out and see that there is a bigger picture at play. Sometimes we get too caught in the moment. So, but also just to go back on that profiling piece, it's something that we didn't actually do until sort of later on into our coaching sessions. But for me, it was a real eye opener because it wasn't just sort of two dimensional; it was three dimensional in many ways, and I understood, and it allowed me to. There was always this conflict about making money. I always thought, oh, okay, I want to be this amazing, rich guy, and when we did that you did the talent profiling on me, it actually came out that it's an interest of mine, but it isn't one of my top talents, and that made so much sense to me. It was a bit hard to. A bitter pill to swallow at first because I thought, oh no, that's the thing. But then again, it's a shame we didn't get to go through it. But absolutely, anyone that's interested in understanding yourself, please get in contact with Marina because there's so much in there, and it's the sort of gift that keeps on giving. And the more you go through, you see, okay, this actually is so deeply understanding who I am, and it allows you to go, oh, okay, why is this not shifting? Because you're putting emphasis on an area that actually isn't where your top talents actually fit, and that allowed me to shift gears because my focus was on creating a course that made loads of money, that brought a lot of value to people, and I had this vision in my mind. And I think in the world of social media, it's easy to fall into that trap. You idolize these type of people that are really smashing it, and you think that's great, but what you see is a small slice of their life. You have to look at the whole picture and realize, okay, do you want to give up everything that they've given up to get to that position? So social media, as we know, is quite skewed to present you with a lovely picture, but doing something like profiling allows you to take a step back and just understand, okay, when I'm doing this, yes, it absolutely drains the hell out of me. Why is that? When I'm doing this, I'm on fire. I feel alive. And it's that transition between it and also almost that middle layer that was so important for me because I understand it's an interest for me, but it isn't where I put all of my focus. And that's allowed me to shift gears. And so my top talent is communication. And surprise, surprise, here we are having a conversation on a LinkedIn Live. So, I didn't necessarily think that. I knew I liked having conversations, but through that work, it wasn't always a linear line. You've been there for me, but I've sort of tried different things and tried different things to fit with me. But ultimately, I lent into the communication side, and that's what seems to really work for me. And I wouldn't have got that if I had not done your profiling. And it's still something that I keep coming back to. And it is the basis of a lot of discussions that we have. So I am hugely grateful for you being in my life. I've always said that to you. I'm hugely grateful for that profiling piece. And I encourage anyone who's curious to do it. I encourage any um, companies wanting to know or to help their people themselves. I think it's hard when you force that on people that don't want to do it. But if you make that resource available and sort of say, look, here it is, I think there's so much value in it for the person and the company. So I would encourage everyone to go to you. I don't know if I'm just going to flood your DMs and you're going to be working 24/7. I don't know, but there's bigger problems in the world. So, but
Yeah.
that's my closing thought. It's not me trying to big you up any more than you deserve because it's absolutely 100% of what I believe in. I am where I am because of you and that profile, and I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you. I'm very, very grateful to hear that. And to be honest, I'm in a position where I am today, understanding what I understand because I received the same profile at some point as well. So I'm hugely grateful for the founders of the system and the people who give the profile to me as well at some point. It's exactly the same. I think my path would have been very, very, very much different from what it is today if I've never received that profile in myself. So I'm really wishing everyone in the audience, through any means available to you, come closer to yourself, understand yourself better, understand what works for you, and really press that gas full. When you understand what works for you, just go to that direction. It's a sign for you that's what you were meant to do. And I wish you all the best of success on that path. And I hope that this creates a better place for all of us to live on this earth. So, yeah, my best wishes for everyone in the audience. Good luck, guys. You'll make it. Everything's going to be awesome.
Amazing. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time, Marina. I know we've gone over the hour that we maybe planned, but I think it was all worthwhile. So I appreciate
No
everything that
worries.
you've said. And it's, maybe we'll get to do a round two sometime.
Absolutely. Would be looking forward to that. Thanks a lot, Colin.
Fantastic. Okay. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Bye.